Welcome to the Jet Fuel Podcast, a series of Concord conversations. In each episode, our lead pastor and a guest will sit down and dive a little deeper into what we learned as a church that week. These are honest, practical conversations to fuel your faith and help you live it out with purpose and consistency. Or, in other words, this is jet fuel for your soul.
All right. Well, welcome back to Jet Fuel Podcast, where we're fueling faith for everyday life. Here with my man Eli, our
Very
college
excited
director.
to be back. Very excited.
Man, I'm glad you're here. Now, for some of you, you know, we took a couple weeks off with Easter and some other things. So thanks for hanging with us and joining us back today. We're going to jump into Mark chapter 5 today. But before we get there, like always, one of my favorite things that we do, Eli, is a question from off screen.
From our live studio audience.
Our live studio audience of an additional 3 people in the room. But Bree, what's our question today?
All right. So if you had to give a 30-minute talk on a topic that you did not.
You're already out of it.
I'm already out.
I know. Already
minutes.
challenging you. But 30-minute talk on a topic that you don't have time to prepare for at all.
Okay.
What would the topic be? And it cannot be biblical because we all know that y'all can,
all right.
talk about that for ages.
30-minute talk, no prep time. Somebody's like,
no
you
Bible.
got the platform, go.
Yep.
What's our go-to? And it can't be Bible, faith-related, just another topic. Eli, what are you thinking, man?
I think if I had to choose, it would probably be disc golf. To be honest,
Disc golf?
Yes, I know, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot to go off of.
It
but
doesn't.
That's one of my.
You throw a frisbee into the woods. End of talk.
Well, I guess it's fair. Like I said, it'd be a struggle to get 30 minutes, but we'll figure it out.
30 minutes, half an hour. I don't know that
Or
I've ever
golf, like regular
or golf. Okay. Yeah. Great. I know what Herndon's would be. He's over there filming right now. It would definitely be Mario. Like Mario Kart, Mario games, all of those things. He has a Mario poster in his office.
Or Georgia football.
He does have obscure knowledge of Georgia football, like obscure knowledge. So he could fill 30 minutes for sure. For me, I'm going to go one of 2 ways. First one would be shoes. I could talk about shoes. I know that sounds weird.
You do have a lot of shoes.
I have an extensive
Would it take you 30 minutes just to name all the shoes in your closet?
Yes.
Specifically Nike related or?
Jordans for sure. You know, the difference in the 1s and the 4s and the original eras, the mismatched.
Yeah, I'm not that cool.
Things. Oh, it's great. It's thrilling. I could do that for a long time. Another one would be probably trucks and working on engines and stuff like that. I worked in an auto parts store in high school, so I could talk about that. Yeah, and how I keep my truck.
So if someone needs their oil change, they can just pull up to your house. And
yes,
take
absolutely.
That reminds me.
Yeah, what are you doing this Saturday? No, my truck's got a little over 180,000 miles on it, and you don't get that unless you take care of your truck. And so that's good stuff. Great question, Bree.
Thanks.
Would be Bree.
Fantastic. Well, let's jump into Mark chapter 5. And as we do this, I know for you were telling us when we were doing some sermon content or something that this has a big place in your heart.
Mm-hmm. What's funny is that question, you know, she added the caveat, not Bible, but if the caveat was not included, this would actually be my 30-minute, because for those of you who don't know, Pastor Clint encourages all of us to have what's called a pocket talk or a pocket sermon. Mm-hmm. Anything that if you're ever asked to give a Devo or like a 5-minute, 15-minute, 20, 30 something with no prep, you can just pull something out that you already have prepared. You've got notes for, you kind of already have it memorized.
He does listen to me. How incredible is that?
But yeah, this is actually my pocket talk because it is like highly pivotal to my testimony, and we can get into that as we go into that.
That's so cool. I love it when, all of Scripture is so important for us to study, to understand. It's living. It's so useful in our life. It's the way God speaks to us. But when there's that extra personal connection, and you can go back to a time, because I bet all of you listening, you can think of a sermon, a talk, a passage of Scripture where you're like, man, God spoke to me in that moment. Yeah. And this is when, I knew this is what I was going to do with my life. And I knew this is how I was going to make it through this tough time. And this is that for you. So I'm excited. Now, with Mark, I love our study of Mark. We are double-digit weeks in to this study now in our year. And I love Mark as a writer, as an author of a gospel. He is so different from Matthew and Luke, just in how they approach it, very similar stuff, and then John altogether. But Mark's got this interesting way, and he's a master storyteller, because what we're going to see today is a story inside of a story.
Yeah. It's like two stories that are sandwiched together almost.
And it's crazy because, this isn't something that's just made up. For instance, this is something that happened, but he's got this story inside of a story, and they parallel, they cross over, and they're happening simultaneously. And so I hope as you study along in Mark chapter 5, 21 through 43, you're really going to get to see how masterfully the Spirit led Mark to write this.
Well, it's so good because you get the first part of the first story, then you jump into the second story, and it's so in depth and detailed that you almost forget there's another story outside of it.
Happening
and you have to
at the
come
same
back
time.
to it. You're like, oh, well, I forgot we're in the middle of something here.
Right. And even in this, you see a man and a woman and a child. And it's just so evident that even in this, whether as a guy, you're approaching this and you can find yourself in Jairus' shoes, or you're a dad and you understand the desperation of a child being sick, or you're a woman who's struggled with this, or a kid. And there's so many levels, so many on-ramps that Mark gives us to how Jesus is going to move in their life.
So before we get in this, you're Camp Jairus or Jairus?
I'm a Jairus guy. And so how do you pronounce it?
I normally lean towards Jairus, but...
Okay, well, let's do this. We are going to
put in the comments.
We are going to commit to using it differently. All
Every
right.
time.
So I'm going to say Jairus, and you're going to say, how is it wrong?
Jairus.
Jairus. Okay. He just ignores the A in there, and so you will hear it differently
informs
throughout
the
the entire podcast. All right.
Because if there was no A, it would be Jairus.
Okay. Here we go. All right. And so. Tell us a little bit about the common theme that we're going to see running between these three people in these two stories.
Yeah, the theme that kind of ties both these together is like a desperate faith. We see both of these people come to Jesus in desperate need. Jairus comes in immediate, his daughter's dying, and he's like, Jesus, I know that you can heal her. I know that you can do something. You got to do it now. She's on the way out. You got to come do it. And then you have the woman with the bleeding condition coming in being like, I've exhausted all of my options. I've done doctors for 12 years. I've exhausted all of my money. Jesus is my last hope. And they're both coming to Jesus and saying, I know that you can do it. And he does in both cases.
Well, that idea of faith in urgency and desperation.
Yeah.
And we're going to explore some of that because it is so relatable. Everybody listening can think to a point where they have come to the bottom of the barrel. They have come to the end of their rope. They have been in a situation that they thought there is no other way. And so there's going to be a lot of anchor points.
Why do you think... We can go ahead and start with this question. Why do you think that desperation is something that more often lends itself towards faith other than like comfort? Like, why is that our first, we wait till desperation happens, or we get caught up in desperation and then we lean into faith versus if we're comfortable, we kind of lean away from faith?
Well, that's a big question. And it's probably a hurtful question to walk through because what we say we would do and probably how we act are two very, very different things. I would say this. I heard this statement a while back, Eli, and it just says this, that comfort is the enemy of growth. Like comfort is the enemy of growth. When we get comfortable, when we get satisfied, when we get full, when everything is working well, there's this mixed theology that just goes, hey, this is how things are supposed to be. But when we're not challenged, when we're not, having to stretch and move, it's kind of like working out. You tear your body down so it will grow back. It will have the scars that will make it bigger and stronger. But I think comfort's the enemy of growth. I think it was Franklin Roosevelt who said, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. And that is so true. And none of us want that. But when we get in desperate situations where we absolutely have no way to put our hands on it and fix it, unfortunately, a lot of times we wait till the last possible moment, and then that's when we turn to Jesus because we've got to fully depend on something outside of ourselves. We have this weird pride that says we can handle and fix almost anything.
Especially in the United States where it's like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You can do anything you set your mind to. If you can dream it, you can do it.
Oh, yeah. And there is some, I don't want to completely demean and demoralize those statements. There's some good things in there, but it is kind of toxic to a degree when you go, I am the be all end all of handling stuff, but we get to situations where God allows in our life where we totally need him, and that's when we turn. And so that's a scary part, and we see that in the story of Jairus. Let's back up a little bit, and who is this guy? I mean, who is this leader that's coming to Jesus?
So he's actually a leader of the synagogue, which is very interesting, the fact that he's coming to Jesus, because at this point in his ministry, Jesus and the synagogue leaders of the Pharisees are kind of at odds. And so this is a very pivotal moment, and especially for Jairus' faith of, hey, I know what my camp thinks about Jesus. I know what has been said about him, but I have faith that he's the one that can do it.
Right. Well, and I think that goes to show you, we talk all the time. I don't know if you do this in your family, but like when Lauren and I were first married, we set some rules in how we argued. And one of them was we can't use infinitives. You know what an infinitive is? Like always, never, and going, you always react like that. Well, that is never true, right? Like, and so you have to add some of this of, hey, I feel that the last couple of times this has been your response. Well, that takes away some of that infinitives. And I think when we look at the religious folks that Jesus was interacting with, when we read the Bible in 2026, we go, all of the religious leaders were against Jesus. Well, maybe not all of them. And
majority,
maybe the majority, but you've got a guy here who is in the synagogue, and these synagogue leaders were responsible for the scripture readings, the service orders, who would come and teach in the synagogue. And so maybe he's organizing these, and he's seeing and he's listening and he's hearing Jesus, and all of his boys are like, oh, this guy's bad news. And he's going, but there's something different. And I've seen him heal a man with a withered hand, and I've seen him cast out a demon. And so maybe his experience, even though he's on the other camp, like some people are in different political parties, and you're like, oh, well, all Democrats, all Republicans, and we kind of group people together sometimes, but you've got this leader who has maybe seen or heard Jesus. His guys are against him, but he knows there's something different.
Yeah, because this has been where Jesus has kind of been doing his ministry, right? They're back in Capernaum because they went across the Sea of Galilee to the Decapolis.
Where the pigs
we talked about last week. And then now that they've come back across, but it doesn't specify where, right?
Right.
If I remember correctly.
Well, I'd have to look into it, but they've gone back across the sea, and Jesus' home base in the Galilean ministry was in Capernaum. And but what is Jairus walking through right now that he is coming to Jesus?
His daughter's sick, and she is dying, and he knows that she's dying, and he comes to him and be like, Jesus, my daughter's dying. You got to help. And he's very desperate. And
he asks him, lay your hands on her, that she may be made well and live. Like this is, I mean, not only an exercise of faith, Eli, but like you talked about earlier, that it's urgent.
Yeah.
Like he's going, she is
There's a ticking time clock, and we got to beat it.
We need rescue. We need help. We need a miracle. We need anything.
Yeah.
And he's looking at Jesus as a miracle worker, as a teacher, as someone different, and time's running out. They're on the clock.
Yeah.
And so, so I think desperate situations drive us to Jesus. I wish for most of us we would go to Jesus first, not last.
Yeah.
Another question that you got there.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced this urgent moment that's kind of pushed you in faith towards Christ?
Well, let me tell you, I have a heart-wrenching story about this. And so if you're a parent, or maybe you're in a relationship, family, something like that. Lauren and I were new parents, first child. We were doing everything right. We had read the books. We had made the plan. We had grandparents. We had the whole deal. And our firstborn got sick and stopped eating and was getting weak and all this kind of stuff. And we end up in the hospital. And when you end up in the hospital with your new baby, first baby, you don't know what to do. And they telling us she's dehydrated, she's sick. And this whole story unfolds of we had to have 6 or 7 different medical professionals try to get an IV drip in her arm. And they do it with a nurse, and then they do it with a NICU nurse, then they do it with a doctor, then they do it with a, what's the blood people, the phlebotomists, and then they have to go get a surgeon because every time they do it, they miss the vein or the vein blows out, and you've got a screaming child that's weeks or months old. And I mean, our hearts are wrecked. And just in that moment, we felt so helpless.
Yeah.
You're just holding this screaming child, and you know they're sick, and even the medical professionals can't help. And there's a desperation of going, God, only you can do something here.
So you're really like able to empathize with this moment here.
This is a big deal. And I think most people, whether it's with a kid or not, you can think of times where you have just come to the end and you're like, God, if you do not move, I'm wrecked. I'm at the end of my rope. And so I think there are moments that push our faith deeper. And just as Christians in America, we are conditioned to look for comfort. We're conditioned to look for the path of least resistance rather than, if God entrusts us with a storm, why not me?
Yeah. I remember that was a couple weeks ago when we preached on that. I was, Lauren and I were walking through the midst of the storm, and that was a very pivotal sermon for her to be like, God's got it. Like, we're in the middle of it, but, God's also here with us in the middle of it.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because I had a very humbling moment with one of our staff members. Like, they had asked me how I was doing, and I was a little upset about something. So I was just like, I can't believe I'm going to do that. And the staff member literally looked at me and goes, but why not you, Clint? And I was like,
amen.
Oh, you got me with my own words.
Yeah.
And so I think that is something to remember. Well, as Jairus comes to Jesus and he says, hey, will you heal my daughter? Jesus agrees to go.
Yeah.
And so they're just back on this side of the sea. A crowd has gathered. Jairus comes and falls down, humble before Jesus, and begs him, help, help, help.
Yep.
And Jesus goes, you got it. I'm going with. And as he turns to go, a woman comes up and grabs the hem of his robe.
Yeah, it's an incredible moment to where everything kind of just slows down. We see everything happening because, Mark always uses the word immediately, right? Over and over again. He's a very fast-paced in terms of story to story to story.
Love that.
And then, as we could have easily inserted another immediately of, Jairus asked Jesus for his help. Jesus says yes. They go to the house, and that's a great story. But then it slows down and turns to a different story with this woman who's been bleeding for 12 whole years.
12 years. That's a long time to be sick.
A long time. And it as well of in the Jewish custom, with her condition, she's been unclean for those 12 years. She's been unable to.
So unpack that for a little bit, because that's not something that maybe we see in our culture. Maybe there's more stigma than actual things. But when you look at the Levitical law back in the Old Testament, there are things like leprosy and bleeding and stuff that make somebody unclean. What, for the people that are listening, what would that be like for somebody's everyday life? I mean, number one, they have to announce to everybody.
They have to
disclose what's going on.
They have to be isolated and vulnerable. They can't be interacting with anybody, because if they touch someone as well, the uncleanness that they have goes to the other person as well.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about that with the man with leprosy, how instead of Jesus inheriting
uncleanness. Yeah.
So that's a huge thing of she's been isolated not only from the temple, but also from just people in general for the last 12 years.
So this lady, because it says that she spent everything that she had on doctors and she hasn't gotten any better. She's actually gotten worse. So isolated. Think about that word for a second. Isolated. I mean, she has been isolated physically from other people. I mean, without touch, without a hug, a high five, those kind of things. She's isolated socially. Family and friends have to keep distance from her. She's isolated in her faith. She's not allowed into the women's court of the Old Testament. She's isolated. I would feel emotionally, feels abandoned, feels worthless. She's going to doctors, can't get any help. This woman is at the very end of her rope, and week after week, month after month, year after year, finances, relationships, faith, family, all of these things have been removed from her.
Yeah.
And at the very last end, she goes to Jesus.
Yeah, Lee says that she'd heard the reports about what Jesus has done, and goes, I know he can do it. Right. In her faith, she has heard all of what Jesus has done, has never really experienced it for herself. But after hearing of all of the things that he's been doing in Capernaum, she goes, that's the one I need to go to.
Right.
And so she falls down at his feet, touches his garment, and she is immediately healed because of this faith.
Well, it's a quiet faith. And I think a lot of people, Eli, correct me if I'm wrong, because you work with this generation that's currently, college students, young adults, things like that. I mean, very active and powerful in their faith, really leading the charge of the church. And you look at them, and some of them have this big, bold faith. Others have a quiet faith, but it's less noticeable, but it's still an active
it's not
faith.
Lacking.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is she doesn't set an appointment with Jesus. She doesn't cut him off in front of. She sneaks through the back of the crowd and just like, I don't even want to interact with him. I just want to touch the hem of his robe. It's a powerful, because as soon as she does. And as you just said in Mark's great thing, he says, immediately she was healed. Like she could feel the difference. That's a big deal. And so what stands out to you about this woman's faith? Like when you look at her faith to go, I've just heard reports about him, but maybe he'll be different than anybody. What stands out about her faith?
I think realistically what really stands out is just how much she trusts in the power of Jesus, like not even just the person of Jesus, if that makes sense. Of he is so powerful, and he is, has all this authority that I've heard about, that even if I just don't even interrupt him, he doesn't have to speak a word. I just have to touch the hem of his garment, which is the bottom edge of it, right? That he has healing in the bottom edge of his garment.
Which is wild, because everything that we've seen is he speaks directly to the demoniac. He reaches out and touches the leper. He does all these things where he's interacting.
He's active, yeah.
And for her, she literally comes up and goes, he doesn't have to speak. He doesn't have to touch me. If I can just, there's such power in him. If I can just touch the cloak that he's wearing. I mean, that's a bold faith.
It is. It reminds me a lot of my wife, Lauren. As much as I am outgoing and loud, she is very much so not. But she has this quiet faith of, it's going to work out because God's got it. Like, and she's inherited that from her parents, who are both a little bit more reserved as well. But like they've instilled in her, like, the Lord he's all powerful, and if he's in it, it's gonna happen.
Well, let me ask maybe like a Bible study question. What is the reason Jesus stops and addresses her when he feels the power going out? Because he could have just kept walking with Jairus. He said, I'm going with you. I'm going to do this. This is my mission. This is my task. What's the reason that Jesus' ministry is interruptible? Well,
I think part of this is like Old Testament study as well, of, when someone has a condition that keeps them outside of the assembly of Israel, like whether it be leprosy, bleeding condition, or whatever, whenever they were healed, they were supposed to go present themselves to the priest, right? And then they'd be like basically given a clean bill of health to where they can come back into the fold of Israel. Jesus is the high priest, right? We see the book of Hebrews, we're doing that with our college students this semester, of Jesus is the perfect high priest. And so he, in this moment, I really think, reading between the lines here, he is restoring her back to the assembly of Israel and the family of God because of, this immediate healing that she has. And I think he wants to say, hey, who was that? And I love Peter. He always asks the question.
Those guys, we look at them and we're like, what a bunch of knuckleheads, right? Like, hindsight is 20/20. We can read scripture and be like, guys, come on. I mean, we knew it, but they're living it. And Jesus stops and he goes, who touched me? And it's like you're at Disney or something. Yeah. There are thousands of people everywhere bumping into you, taking pictures, smiling, and you're just like, what do you mean who touched you? Everybody is touched you. They are pressing in. There's crowd. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And then Jesus, he repeats the question again. Who touched me? And this is part of the story that's like super pivotal in my testimony. I was senior in high school, was going to Bible camp during the summer, and I was in the midst of my 6 months of I can drive now, so I'm going to be a little bit rebellious. And my Bible study leader, the first night we were there, he shared this story with us, and he's like, look, out of that whole crowd who touched Jesus, because he's emphasizing the fact of disciples are like, what are you talking about, Jesus? So many people touched you. And he's like, but only one of them touched Jesus with intention. And he's like, if you're here this week and you want to be healed, touch Jesus with intention. And like literally that night, Jesus was like, what the heck are you doing? And I was like, that's my bad, God.
Yeah.
And it was just an incredible like 180 moment where, I'd been saved. I was just doing something stupid, should not have been doing it. And the Lord used this story and my Bible study leader to be like, hey, you've been just brushing past me for the longest time. You've been, doing the whole church game.
You've been in the crowd. You've been near, but there's been no intentionality.
There's been proximity, but there's not been relationship.
Oh.
And so this story was a very pivotal, like, night and day difference. So.
Wow, I love that. What a testimony. And I'm sure so many people can relate to that of going, hey, we get good at being in the crowd.
Yeah.
We become professional crowd people. Like we can say the right things, be in the right place, get the right t-shirt, do just enough to be in the crowd where Jesus is. He's moving, he's working. I mean, I think about our church right now. I mean, how many people have been baptized in the last 7
Praise
weeks?
God,
and how many kids have been dedicated? How many men's groups are going on right now?
Yeah.
And God has just been so faithful and gracious and kind. And people can come and be a part of that, but not intentional with it.
Yeah.
Not back there helping. We've got a baptism coming up in a couple of weeks, and a lady's being baptized, and the woman that is discipling her, she's like, this is who I want to baptize me, because you have an intentional relationship with someone. I just think that intentionality, I love what you said. It's more than just proximity, but it's intentionality. And I think that's a big deal. And so this woman knows.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the whole crowd stops. He turns around. There's people everywhere. And he's like, who was it? Like, somebody's got to fess up. And I love this because some people will read this text and go, Jesus didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm of the firm opinion that this is kind of a repeat of what happened in Genesis 3. When Adam and Eve are in the garden.
And he's like,
they've
where are
sinned
you?
against God. They hear him coming in the cool of the day. They hide themselves. And God says, Adam, where are you? It's not that he didn't know, but it was a time of Adam having to respond to the authority of God and go, I'm right here.
Yeah.
And you see this beautiful picture unfold of them being covered by the skins, God providing. Then you get all of the curse that comes out of that. But Jesus here is something that we've seen before. Goes, who was it? And it says this woman comes with fear and with trembling, and she tells him everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a testimony of going, this is who I am. This is what happened. And it's a big deal. If I just read this real quick in verse 31, his disciple said to him, you see the crowd pressing in on you, and you say, who touched me? And he looked around to see the woman who had done this. But the woman, fearing and trembling, aware that what had happened, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And then this happens.
This
Watch
is
this,
incredible.
Eli. He said to her, daughter. For a woman that's been isolated from family, from faith, from finances, left alone, suffering. And that's where Satan gets us, when we're isolated, when we're alone, when that zebra gets pulled out from the pack. It's when it's most vulnerable to the lions. She's been isolated, and he gives her a family term of endearment of, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. Took care of the inside and the outside.
Because for the last 12 years, her identity has been this condition that she's been walking through.
Her identity has been unclean, unacceptable.
And Jesus changes that.
Yeah. And how many of us have lived a life where we go, I'm unclean, I'm unacceptable, God would want nothing to do with me. He loves you. He cares about you. And he wants to take what has been broken, our sin inside of us, and his son Jesus paid for it, and we can be restored and made new. I mean, it's just such a beautiful picture. And so he doesn't just heal her, but he restores her identity. You said that. So let's take on a couple more questions here.
What do you this story, we've been talking, our first sermon series through Mark was called crowds and calling, right? Focusing on these crowds that Jesus are amassing. Now we're seeing the power of Jesus in the midst of another crowd. How do you think this story should inform us of the way that Jesus views the individuals within the crowd?
Well, I think it's one of those things, in Christianity, we have a lot of things that we would acknowledge with our mouth and our mind, but our lifestyle denies. Yeah. And we would say, Jesus cares about the one. He would leave the 99 and he would go for the one. And we would say that, and we would agree that. And I think a lot of people actually believe that unless they're the one. And they're like, I'm insignificant. I'm a face in a crowd. Church is about numbers and crowds and rows of people and how many of this and how many of that. And they forget that Jesus knows every hair on their head. He knows everything about them. He created them. He designed them. He knit them together in their mother's womb. And he cares for the individual. So I think in the midst of this, you have this crowd. Well, it says thronging around Jesus. He is headed to a very important man's house to do a miraculous thing that we're about to see. Yeah. And this one insignificant woman, as she feels, he stops and he gives her attention and he takes care of her heart and her body. And I think what we see about Jesus is he cares for people. Yeah. Every single one of them. And I think that's something we would acknowledge, but we have trouble believing when it comes to us.
I think also on the flip side of that is, sometimes we say, oh, Jesus leaves the 99 for the one. And sometimes we feel like we're the 99 of Jesus only cares about that one person who's been wayward for.
Yeah, I'm number 63.
Yeah, we feel like the older brother and the prodigal
15,
son. Yeah, where it's like, well, I've been here doing the hard work. I've been doing all these things, and yet you're going to throw him a feast who's wasted all of your inheritance. He's gone off. He's cursed you to your face, and you're going to welcome him back in love. Where's my party? Where's my parade? Yeah. Right? And so, even here we see that, Jesus is going through the crowd, doing something for Jairus, but he stops to intentionally have someone from the crowd be like, your identity has been restored.
It's incredible. Well, let's do this. We've got a big miracle to cover here in the end, but I want to stop right now and do another one of our ministry highlights. Hope you guys see an incredible connection that God is using through Concord with this ministry.
Okay, we are back with another one of our ministry highlights. I'm here with Scott from Straight Street Ministries. Good to have you.
Thank you.
So, just to start off, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got involved with Straight Street Ministries.
Okay. Thank you all for having me come in. My name is Scott Soper. I'm the director for Straight Street. And I got involved with the organization about 18 months ago. I became the executive director. Spent most of my career in the private sector and healthcare. And one of our board members, I was going through a job transition, and he said, hey, we're looking for a new director. Would you be interested? And I'm on part-time staff at my church and an elder, so I'm understand a little bit.
Yes.
But I'd never been in this a nonprofit space. But I was very intrigued, the opportunity to serve, the opportunity to help. And I came on September of 24.
Nice.
So
that's great. And that's about the time I met you guys.
Yes.
Because we've partnered with Straight Street for a little while. And so we got connected. And tell us a little bit about what Straight Street Ministries is, because I know it can be a little confusing for people because you guys have a few different umbrellas under what you do ministry. Yes. So tell us a little bit about what it is.
Straight Street has 3 different programs where we minister to different population groups that are all in some form of crisis. The different programs started at different times. So if you ask, when did Straight Street start? Well, it depends on which program. The initial program was our Backpack Love program where we feed school children over the weekend.
Yes, which is what our people would probably be most familiar with because we've done that a good bit.
Yes.
So.
Even most recently, y'all packed 50 or so bags for us.
Yes, I think our kids ministry is the most recent. They did, our kids packed about 50 bags for you guys for their missions opportunity for the month. So, yeah.
That was, we're so grateful that y'all did that. So Backpack Love works to identify children in the Hall County school system that have the most critical food insecurity.
Okay.
And we send home food over the weekends because it started with a group of teachers at Chestnut Mountain that actually realized their students were coming in on Monday
starving
and they hadn't eaten all weekend since their lunch.
Oh yeah, because they're probably like free and reduced lunch at school and different things like that.
So we grew from initially 5 bags to a peak in 2024 of over 850 bags per week.
Wow, that's a lot.
Delivered. It is a lot. And we have since reduced that number as we've evaluated the program to make sure we're on mission. We don't want to be a food bank.
Yeah.
We want to target those children and families that have the most critical need and also be a good steward of the resources that our church partners and other partners have allowed us to utilize for the program.
For sure.
So it's cut back in a healthy way right now to a smaller number per week. But we have volunteer teams that pack the bags and volunteer teams that deliver the bags to the schools every Thursday or Friday during the school year.
Okay.
And it makes it unique because the students don't have to go somewhere to get the food.
Yeah.
We take it to them.
Yeah, for sure.
And we, through directly and our church partners, we serve all the schools in Hall County and Gainesville City.
Yeah, so that's a lot of schools.
It is.
Yeah.
It's pushing 40.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. So that's Backpack Love.
Yes.
And then what's the next one?
The next program is called Street Impact.
Okay.
And we've actually had quite a few Concord members and maybe that have now gone to Yona Community also that have served with our Street Impact teams. And that program works, it emphasizes assisting handicapped individuals with accessibility.
Got it.
We prioritize and specialize in building ramps so that they can get into their home.
Yeah.
And bathroom renovations so that individuals are able to either get through their doorways with walkers or wheelchairs.
Yeah, because that needs to be a lot wider for that.
It does.
Yeah.
And zero barrier showers.
Okay.
Because a lot of times they can't get in and out of their tub.
Sure.
Most homes aren't built for that.
Correct.
So those are our 2 main projects, ramps and bathroom renovations. We do other critical repairs and needs as determined. Most of the time when we're on site, a lot of times
you'll see something else that needs to be taken care of.
If we're building a ramp for an individual, if the landing isn't good enough to support the ramp and or the wheelchair, of course we'll take care of that at the same time.
Yeah.
Again, back to the bathrooms. A lot of times when you start ripping out subfloor and walls, when plumbing's involved, there could be other things that need to be taken care of.
For sure. So y'all kind of take care of that in a broad spectrum for handicapped individuals.
And our coordinator for that program, he vets the projects. We only build to code. We only build our ramps to code. So for the safety of the family and of course for liability purposes.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so it's the Backpack Love and then Street Impact. And then the last one's Beautiful Feet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Our Beautiful Feet program is probably it's our most intense. We work to rescue women from sexual exploitation.
Yes.
So adult women, not minors, is our focus. And that can take any form. Under that umbrella of exploitation. So, pornography, prostitution, trafficking, unfortunately, it's a lot of those subject matters that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
That maybe don't even know exist or are going on.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would like to believe that's not happening in this area.
Being completely transparent, 18-ish months ago, I had no clue.
Yeah.
Until I became a part of the organization to really understand, and I've just scratched the surface, what's going on out there.
Yeah.
I think the average age in Georgia for a young lady, a young girl to be exploited is in the 10 to 12-year-old.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And it is. The trauma that they experience, it's unique for every one of the ladies that go through our program. I'll just say it's horrific.
Yeah.
I think we'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I think we can kind of surmise what I'm referencing.
Yeah.
Right, without going into those details.
Yeah, for sure.
So our program is a 12-month residential recovery and rehab program. We have a home in the South Hall area. And it's a Christ-centered, biblically based program.
Yeah.
Where these ladies are, they're brought in. There's a transition time frame when they're trying to just move from the world they've been in to there's a place where I'm safe.
Yeah.
There's a place where I have a meal every day, multiple meals. I can get health care. It's a very hard transition, truthfully.
For sure.
Because many of them they just haven't experienced any type of love in their lifetime. So it's the hardest program by far.
Yeah, for sure.
It has the most direct impact. I know that being able to get into your home via a new ramp or a meal is direct. But the ripples that come from the Beautiful Feet program that can change not just that woman's life, because most of the time they have children and they have a family that they can impact for generations.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's actually cool because I think we had, for Beautiful Feet, for our serve day, we had a group of ladies come to the home and kind of do some activities with the ladies there. Yes. And then actually before I started working at Concord, I was with a group of college students from Truett McConnell, and we came and cooked dinner with them and hung out with them. And it's just really cool to see how they come just from a very broken lifestyle, but how the Lord can change their hearts and their lives and bring them to come to know Him and hear just their testimonies. Because I think there was a few ladies when I went that were kind of on the back end of their time in the home. And so they were willing to share kind of a little bit of their story and their testimony with us. And so it's really beautiful to see how God is using you guys in those ladies' lives to kind of bring them out of that broken lifestyle and help them kind of just re-enter into a normal life with regular skills and different things, but then also how you're pouring into them spiritually to see how the Lord uses that. So that is a really cool ministry. So with all of that, that's a lot to oversee.
It is.
All three ministries. So if you had one or two things that you would ask Concord to pray for you guys about, or for you specifically, what would that be as y'all are seeking to do ministry in these three different areas?
I would say that each of our ministry, so each program has a ministry coordinator, and we as a leadership team, we ride the wave just like somebody who works at in any ministry rides the wave of emotion. Yeah. Of look at the victory and, oh my gosh, this is hard.
Here's another thing. Yeah.
Right. So, prayers of encouragement that we sometimes don't even know we need. Yeah. We know we need. So that would be one thing, for the ministry, that as leaders, we continue to feel strengthened to do the work, to serve these individuals. And then I guess I would say if there's a tangible way that if anyone who sees this would want to become involved with the ministry in any of the programs, there can be opportunities for that. Okay. For example, the Beautiful Feet program, there's certain requirements, of course, to participate in that ministry. But if they wanted to be involved directly with their hands, or if they felt led to contribute to the ministry, we're completely donor funded, whether it's individuals, churches like Concord, or businesses, organizations.
Okay.
We operate a little bit just like a church, right? We operate on the donations of
absolutely
the members, so to speak.
Absolutely. Okay. So. Yeah, that's good to know. Praying for you guys for encouragement as you do hard work. And then if there are any of you guys that are listening and you would like to be involved, more than what we are as a church together, and you want to do something individually with Straight Street, feel free to reach out to me and I can get you guys connected. But definitely be praying for them. We support them monthly and then do these odds and ends service projects and things with you guys.
Yes.
And so thank you so much for coming and being a part, as this ministry highlight. And this has been another ministry highlight, and back to the podcast.
All right, here we go. Back to Mark chapter 5.
Yeah, so while Jesus is taking the time to acknowledge this woman and be like, who touched me? We hear news of Jairus' daughter. A servant from the house comes and goes, Jairus, your daughter is dead. Don't bother Jesus anymore.
Man, I can't imagine like the crushing grief. Like he knew this was a possibility, but now it's a reality.
Yeah.
And I mean, just along with that crushing grief, you probably got to think that he was just like, man, if we would have moved sooner,
if we wouldn't have
done this, why this lady out of nowhere, she could have waited her turn. Like, she's sick, but my daughter's now dead.
Yeah.
And I got to think there's probably some frustration, some anger, but definitely a crushing blow.
I know I would be.
And grief. But what Jesus does is he gives him commands.
Yeah.
He says, do not fear. I mean, that's a command. Stop doing this. And then he gives another command, only believe, which in the Greek is the imperative that keeps going. Do this over and over and over. He goes, stop doing this, stop being afraid, and keep on believing over and over. And when you've believed, believe again, believe some more.
It's almost similar to what he commands the disciples in the boat across the Sea of Galilee, right? Of like, why are you afraid?
That's a big deal. And so it's one thing to believe while there's still time, right? Jairus is going, you can come and lay your hands on her. Now she's dead. And so in his mind, he feels it's too late. So let me ask you this question, Eli, just because I think most of us are probably pondering the same thing at this part of the text is, why is it harder to trust God when things seem beyond fixing? Why is it harder to go, like, I can have faith if things are almost definitive, but when they become definitive, man, it's harder to believe.
I feel like, speaking for myself, part of it is because we have a tendency to limit God in our mind.
Okay.
We say that we believe that God is all powerful, and yet with our actions and with our faith, it doesn't always lend itself towards that of like, well, God, you could have done something, but now, like, there's just no point. Or, like, now, you're not going to be able to do anything about it now.
Well, in our finite mind, we go, here are the parameters of what's possible.
Yeah.
And we put humanity and the finiteness of man, and we try to saddle that on an infinite God.
Yeah.
And so how does somebody practically hold on to their faith when circumstances says it's over, it's beyond repair, there's nothing that can be done, this situation, this job, this relationship, this life, this is over? How does somebody practically hold on to their faith when our finiteness says there's nothing more that can be done?
Yeah, no, I think honestly it goes back to your point when you're talking about the disciples in the storm of like, turn your fear into faith of, Christ is in the middle of it. And if he's in the middle of it, then the story's never over, right? Like even with the ending of this life, our hope is not in this life, but it's in the life after this one, because Christ has redeemed us, right? Given us the gift of eternal life. Nothing is truly ever over if God is in the midst of it.
Right. And so Jesus rolls up to this house.
Yep.
And it seems like the mourners that are there, I probably think it's professional mourners. They've been called in to weep and to wail and help bring about and walk people through that grief. And so you walk up and this chaos is in the house. There's finality. This 12-year-old has died. And,
Jesus comes in on a complete different page. Everybody's crying and weeping. There's people that have been paid to be here. They're mourning. And Jesus goes, why are you crying? The child is not dead, but simply just sleeping.
Yeah. And they laugh at him.
Yeah.
I mean, they laugh right in his face.
And I know, like, we're kind of conditioned, as if you're just reading through scripture at this point, to be like, man, why would they laugh at Jesus? But truthfully, if you just watch someone pass away and someone comes in that you don't really know, like you've heard about maybe, and they go, they're not dead, they're just sleeping. Like you would kind of be like, what?
Yeah.
Like it's our natural response to be like, oh, they're in the wrong here, which I mean they are, but ultimately like that's not an inhuman response, if that makes sense.
Well, and there is some finesse to this word, because the word sleep does refer throughout, especially the New Testament, and I would think of, that is a term we use for death. Yeah, those that are asleep will,
Paul talks about that later.
Those kinds of things. So it's the moment. She has died. She is asleep, but it's not final. Yeah. He's going to interrupt that. And so what he does is he takes this inner circle, this is the first time in Mark that we see them separated from the group of disciples, Peter, James, and John. He takes them and he takes the parents and they go into this little girl's room. So the 6 of them with the little girls that we have at least listed in this passage. And he speaks to her, grabs her arm, which once again, we talk about the uncleanness. If, some of the Levitical laws, you touch a dead body, you'd be unclean. But Jesus brings life instead of the contagiousness
Twice
of death.
In the same story.
That's incredible. It's amazing. And immediately she gets up.
Yeah, he simply just goes, little girl, arise. And that's all he does.
And she does.
And she gets up.
Death does not have the final word. Jesus does. And so I think that's a big deal for us to remember. Well, let's land this plane on this Jet Fuel podcast. So give us a couple of walkaways for everybody to consider. Eli, give us 3 things that people can ponder, pray through, and finish up this podcast with.
This is actually good as part of my pocket talk, is, don't ever want to read yourself into scripture, but you can relate to these 3 distinct characters in this scripture of, are you someone who would be like Jairus, where you're waiting on a miracle? You've prayed in desperation. You're asking Jesus, would you move? And you're waiting and you're waiting and waiting. And it starts to seem more and more and more final, right? And so if you're in that camp, I would say hold on to faith, because with Christ, nothing is ever final. Or maybe you're in the camp of this woman with the bleeding condition, where you're at the end of your rope and you've been exhausted. You've done all these things and you just need to go and sit at his feet. You just need to touch his robe. You have faith that he is powerful, more powerful than your circumstances. And you need to have your identity restored in Christ, not in your circumstance. Or perhaps maybe you're in the crowd where, you've been seeing the things of Jesus, you've been observing, you've been walking alongside him maybe, but you've never had a true encounter with him. And you need to touch him with intention this week.
Well, that's big. And so how do we respond when God's timing feels delayed? And do I trust Jesus both in quiet faith and urgent desperation? And lastly, am I willing to believe even when things seem beyond hope? So thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for listening, being a part. We love this podcast and we love the resource that it is. And so this has been Jet Fuel, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Peace.